Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I'm Braden. That's Tim. This is Second Legacy, and you are awesome for showing up, and thank you so much for doing so. Today, we are going to talk about how Merrick Garland and Steve Dedabot kind of caught a lawsuit from 26 states around their gun show loophole thing, redefining who was a dealer. This is something that we are all about because more than half the states jumped on this bad boy by the filming of this episode. So make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. This is the channel where we dive into the happenings of the 2A day. Add a little commentary, a little analysis, some humor and sarcasm for delicious consumption. Right back out to you. And with that, Tim, 26 states.
Yes. And I have to admit, 3 of them I've lived in. Yes. Go Kansas, go Missouri, go Indiana. Yeah.
Oh, man. See, I only got 2. I got Georgia and Florida.
Hey.
So you can tell where I moved.
Yeah. It's good to see Kansas back in the game. For a long time when I was a much younger man, Kansas was not very pro-gun, but they did a hard turn to the right. And
they did take a U.E.
They did, man. They legalized machine guns, suppressors. All these things were not allowed when I lived there.
Terrible.
Didn't have concealed carry. Didn't have any of that. We did it anyway, but, whatever. But
whoa. Don't, you're on the internet. Don't admit that.
No,
it's hypothetical.
That's statute of limitations. Oh, wait, they just put Trump on trial and ignored statute of limitations. No, but it was a misdemeanor charge anyway. Yeah, kind of like Indiana. Indiana for a long time had a permitting system before the constitutional carry, and everybody I knew just didn't even bother to go get the permit because nobody was ever charged with it, unless you actually went out and committed a crime and it was a tack-on charge. But a cop would go, do you have a permit for that? And you just go, yeah. I'm like, all right. They didn't even want to see it. So, because just a piece of paper that had no fingerprint, had no picture, just a piece of paper on an 8.5 by 11 sheet, you had to cut out yourself and laminate yourself. And it just said, you have the right to carry a gun in the state of Indiana, and had nothing on the back.
Sweet.
Anyway.
Amazing.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to we've thrown up the list of the states on the first lawsuit, because here's the thing, Tim, there's a few different lawsuits. This is really, I love to see this. The first one with all the majority of the states, I believe this was 21 states, was published on May 1st, 2024. So this was announced yesterday. It was actually filed on the 1st, so 2 days ago. So it was filed on Wednesday, and it made the circuit and announcements on Thursday, right? Filming right now is Friday. So what you're looking at is all these states who are doing something very important, okay? This is who they're suing. This is number 10. This is Merrick Garland and Steve Dedabot and the ATF. So you're going after DOJ, you're going after ATF, and you're going after the directors of those organizations, Tim. This is exactly the same move that was initiated with the ghost guns, which is now in front of the Supreme Court, with the bump stocks, which has already been heard by the Supreme Court, with the pistol braces, which got smoked in the Fifth Circuit.
Yep.
I mean, everything that we're seeing is a mirror, because the obvious solution to this is what we've been doing for the last 2.5 to 3 years.
Yeah. And
it's working.
And yeah, it's working. And this obviously is all about the what defines a dealer, and we've already seen how this can go horribly wrong. It happened in Arkansas soon after they did this.
Yes, we did.
The ATF took it upon themselves to go raid a businessman who was an airport executive at his gated community home, and they kicked his door in, and gunfight ensued, and he wound up dead, all because he had sold a few guns that they now deemed him to be dealing without a license.
That's the thing. And dealing without the license.
And forever, my entire life, you go to gun shows and stuff like that, you would see people walking around with rifles on their back, like a Mosin Nagant saying, hey, $299 Mosin Nagant for sale, 1944, whatever, right? And that it wasn't considered dealing. You were just offloading something to pick up something else. Perfectly normal in a normal world. But the ATF seeks to criminalize that. Right? Oh, no, got to have a license. You got to pay us $500 a year, go through a background check, have a place of business. And, it's like, no. Right. And so the beautiful thing about this, all these states doing this, correct me if I'm wrong in my assessment, Braden, but this almost guarantees the Supreme Court will take a look at it if it goes that far. Because when you have this many states, over half of the states are like, we have a problem with this. The Supreme Court's going to have to weigh in on it, most likely, depending on how this plays out in the lower courts.
At the base level, to your point, you can never predict what's going to happen at SCOTUS, of course.
Yeah.
Obviously. But yes, if you have many states that are about half of the union, the SCOTUS is more inclined to look at it because, hold on, 26 states have a problem with this?
Yeah.
Wait a second.
If it was just one or two states,
add more credibility.
Maybe not. When over half of the states are talking about a regulation change that criminalizes Americans,
correct.
And if it goes up to the Supreme Court,
That's you just said something really important, because they didn't pull any punches in the text. I'm about to read you some of the lawsuit language. They specifically went after exactly what they just changed at the ATF rules of who's engaged in business. Check this out. Number 11. Defendants, Attorney General Merrick Garland and Director of the ATF, Steve Dettelbach, claim that Congress gave them authority to regulate far more broadly. Under a new rule, definition of engaged in business as a dealer in firearms, ATF claims the power to reach and regulate via an extensive licensing scheme a citizen who makes a local sale of even one firearm to another individual. Now, the reason that I like that, Tim, they said exactly the problem. They translated the common outcome for the common person, but they also said what they did executively through the bureaucratic state.
Right.
I really loved how they tied that together.
Yep. I mean, and look at that. It says right there, makes a local sale of one firearm, folks.
Yep.
One firearm. If you go out there and you don't even know this stupid rule change exists, and you go and sell a gun, you do it to an undercover agent, and they decide to prosecute you for it, you can literally go to jail for this.
Correct.
For selling one firearm.
For selling one, right? This is a thing, right? This is not a small potatoes of thing that you're dealing with here. But they also went a little further, Tim, in this next one, and then we're going to talk about SCOTUS and all the things that are happening at SCOTUS, because I think that's important as well. But listen to what they said in number 12 here, Doctor. For more than 40 years, the relevant federal statute had already defined who is required to become a federal firearms licensee. Yet defendants in this case is ATF, Merrick Garland, Steve Dettelbach. Defendants seized on a recent minor change in that statute and effectively rewrote the entire definition. Until now, only those who repetitively purchased and sold firearms as a regular course of business had to become a licensee. But through the final rule, defendants will now presume that anyone who sells or resells even one firearm with the intent to profit, no matter how little, combined with other nebulously defined evidence, is a firearms dealer who must become a licensee. This would put innocent firearm sales between law-abiding friends and family members within the reach of federal regulation. Perfect.
Yep. And look at this, folks. Let's say that this was allowed to stand, right? And then they say, well, if you don't want to get charged with the crime, just do it through an FFL. Go ahead and sell your gun online, and then just make sure everything gets routed through an FFL and there's a background check done. That's what people would assume with this. But let's say that they get this done and it stands and we don't beat it in court. What's the next step? The next step is, oh no, you listed your gun for sale online. That's dealing without a license. We don't care that you went to an FFL to transfer it. You technically took money for that through an online transaction digitally before there's any background check done. Therefore, we still believe you violated the law here. That's where they can take this, folks, and that's not a stretch. That's literally the next step.
Because at that point, right, but at that point, it's just a small, modest change for public safety. Because if it's already law that you can't sell a gun for profit, if you're not a dealer, then can you do that on social media? I mean, literally, it would just be a small little caveat to where they would add and adjust, and all of a sudden you're a felon if you make a marketing post on something.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they would do.
You sell it for a profit online. You took money. You hadn't transferred the firearm yet, but you were dealing, folks. You were dealing, and you don't have a license because you made $50 profit on that gun you bought 30 years ago. And see, that's what's... And I've seen some really funny things that people have said, like, well, you know what? I'm going to just give guns away that I, sell. I'm just going to give them the gun and say, hey, by the way, I have this Tootsie Roll over here for $500. You want that too? Got it discounted. There's like so many workarounds to this. Now, I wouldn't want to go in front of a judge and try to explain that, but it's like people are making fun of this because it's so easy to make fun of, because this is absolutely ridiculous. This is beyond the pale.
Correct.
And to people not in the gun community, if you've ever bought and sold a firearm, like everybody that's a gun collector or somebody that's into the shooting sports, every single one of us has sold a gun. Every single one of us. Mm-hmm. I've even given a gun away as a wedding present to a best man. So, and who hasn't given a family member their first .22 rifle for Christmas, right? They're going to criminalize all of that, or they have, and now we got to fight for our rights back.
But hey, now you just led something. I would just like to point out, Tim, for everyone watching, recently, the amount of action that we've seen on the gun side of things at the Supreme Court level is unprecedented in the last 2 years.
Case after case after case for a court that,
oh my gosh,
maybe 3% of the cases ever get taken up by the court.
Exactly. It's 3% of all cases submitted to them are accepted. And then after that, of those 3%, they usually try to avoid gun stuff. That's why you had Heller in 05. You had Bruin in 22. I mean, like, there's 17-year gaps.
And before
between
that,
these gun rulings.
They almost never heard firearms cases.
Correct.
So.
It was almost non-existent. But now, in the past 2 years, you've got bump stocks that have been already heard. You've got the Rahimi case that's been heard. You have the Bruin decision. You have Chevron deference, which is unrelated to guns directly, but it is a tie-in. Then you have the ghost gun regulation, which was just accepted for a hearing in October. And then you have the AR and mag bans, which they just decided to have a conversation around 2 weeks from now.
And McDonald.
This is unprecedented.
Yeah.
And McDonald. Yeah, thank you.
So, yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. The last, 10, 15 years have been very good for the Second Amendment because we finally have justices that are willing to hear these cases. Before, the court was unbalanced because it had a leftist majority. And they just...
Well, now it's unbalanced the other way.
Now it's unbalanced the other way. This is what... We're making fun of the left saying the court's unbalanced because they don't have a majority.
Yeah.
But this is something that the left... because when a court case comes before the Supreme Court, several of the judges will vote whether or not to take that case up, right? Well, when it was predominantly left-leaning, there's like, we don't want to mess with it. We don't want to hear any gun cases. We don't want to have to decide on that.
Correct.
We don't want to touch that. But now that we have justices that the Second Amendment is something that they care about and something they feel they need to, chime in about, now we're hearing these cases, right. And it's really good for us. This is the time for us to push this every single chance we get. When the left gives us a soft pitch like this, we got to take it to the court. We just have to.
All day, baby.
Yep.
Take it right to the end zone, 100%. But speaking going to the end zone, this is the last piece from the lawsuit that I want to share with you. Then I'll show you what other states are doing too. This is 13. Defendants' claim of authority to implement this scheme dramatically upends both our constitutional traditions and the federal firearm licensing regime Congress designed. Not only does the final rule go beyond the defendant's statutory authority, again, ATF and DOJ, but it also contradicts the applicable statutory language. The final rule is therefore unlawful and the court should set it aside. The reason that I put this one in here is because they've already hit the private sale. They've already hit the private profit. Now they're going after the actual usurpation of Congress.
Yep. Which is
beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, that's all points that we would make, right? So
exactly.
And the biggest point, look, folks, the whole notion, I think it was probably well-intentioned in the 80s when they went with it, the Chevron deference. And basically what that means is Congress passes a law. And if there's any ambiguity in the law, they just leave it up to the regulating authority, the bureaucracy, to figure it out for themselves, right? But that leads to lazy lawmaking, which has been the net result of Chevron deference. So now they're going to draft these laws that are just full of holes because nobody wants to commit to anything because they'll be held accountable for their votes. So they make the laws purposely nebulous and then they pass them. And then the agency gets it and like, look at this. We got carte blanche free reign here. We can do whatever we want because it's so ambiguous. And that's led to decades of problems since. And so now the court has weighed in on that. We're going to hear what their decision is shortly. But it needs to be undone because Congress is supposed to pass laws. Regulatory agencies are not supposed to make laws out of whole cloth because there's a hole in the law somewhere. If anything, it needs to go back to the Congress for another vote.
I think that is becoming more and more evident that is an issue that the judiciary doesn't like.
Oh yeah, this court, some of the comments, they've said
like some of the stuff that Kavanaugh has said, and Kavanaugh's kind of wishy-washy. Some of the stuff ACB has said, some of the stuff that Gorsuch particularly has said. I mean, the locks on anti-executive bureaucratic overreach, pretty solid, are Alito, Thomas, and Gorsuch. Kavanaugh leans that way, and ACB, she kind of goes waffles, honestly, back and forward. But the others, whatever, Roberts and the other three liberals or leftists, but dude, there's a serious push against the executive overreach that's happening. I think so.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that concerns me about it is that if the SCOTUS just shreds Chevron, that's going to create a big problem for government, right? Because we have decades of all these regulations that just magically get undone overnight. And the justices are going to be thinking about that. Like, what type of chaos is this going to cause at the government level? And it's going to cause chaos, but the chaos needs to happen. Because it should have never taken place in the first place.
It should never have happened. It was allowed to happen that long.
Right. We can't look at this and go, oof, that'll just create too big of a mess. We just got to leave it as is. No, that's how liberty dies.
You got to rip it out.
Yep.
You got to rip it out by the root, and you got to deal with the problem as it comes.
Yep.
And that's exactly what has to happen. Congress has to pass something. They have to be held accountable to the people as it was designed, and the judicial keeps doing what it's doing, and the executive bureaucracy stops using Chevron deference to write rules.
Yep.
That's what has to happen to correct it. It will be, I think, to your point, it will be very spicy for a hot minute until Congress starts really cranking out laws to fix the problems by writing things too vaguely on purpose.
Yeah.
Well, you made your bed, so
Yeah,
fix it.
you did it. Not my problem. You fix it. You broke it. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so the remaining states here, just kind of a high level real quick, because I think we're wrapping this video. We covered it pretty well. You got Paxton from Texas. You got Attorney General Chris Kobach from Kansas. You've got the Florida Attorney General, and I believe Oklahoma just jumped on as well for a total of 26. So 26 states.
That's impressive, and that's
what I'm talking about.
That's a good sign for us because
and it's not just a letter.
No,
it's an actual lawsuit.
Actual lawsuit. Yeah, by 26 states. So again, this should hopefully, God willing, it'll play out to our benefit because 26 states being up in arms about this and going the step of bringing a lawsuit against the DOJ and ATF, and that's a pretty big step. It's not something that routinely happens. Therefore, chances are the courts are going to weigh this probably in our favor. I'm hoping. We'll see. It's hard to predict the outcome of a court case, but it certainly seems to be going our way. We'll see how this goes. Folks, as this works its way through the courts, we'll be following it. We will be. And as changes and updates happen, we'll bring it to you here on Second Legacy. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you guys soon.